Our chief legal analyst, Dan Abrams, our chief political analyst, Matthew Dowd. And Dan, let me begin with you. As we've seen, the big question on the table now is, do the facts laid out by Comey, along with everything else we know, lay the predicate for an obstruction of justice investigation?
Well, first, I think anyone in federal law enforcement would tell you that if what James Comey is saying is true, it's inappropriate. The question of obstruction of justice is a separate one. I don't think there's any individual piece here that anyone would say that in and of itself is going to lead to obstruction of justice. The question is, does the total picture here lead to a pattern, which is from the moment that Donald Trump is meeting with James Comey, the reason he's meeting with him, asking other people to leave the room when he does meet with him, and then from there ending up firing him and then pronouncing it the reason was, at least in part because of Russia. The question there is, when you look at all of that together, does that reach the level of obstruction?
Combined with what he may have said, the president may have said to the director of national intelligence and to his staff. And as John Carl suggested, we don't know right now whether Robert Mueller, the special counsel, is actually investigating the president for obstruction of justice.
That's right. I mean, some people are saying, well, look, it's clear Comey's saying that he wasn't investigating Trump, so what are we talking about? Well, the answer to that is we're now talking about what has happened since then. The fact is he's been fired since then. The president has talked about Russia being on his mind since then. And the question then becomes, how does that fit into the totality of the investigation?
And Matt Dowd, the president faces this hearing coming into it in a very, very tough political position. His approval numbers continue to fall. He is not trusted on this issue.
Well, the difference between Donald Trump today and where Richard Nixon was when the start of Watergate and where Ronald Reagan was in the start of Iran-Contra, both those presidents were at 60% plus approval ratings. Donald Trump is in the mid-30s today. So he has no wellspring of support to sort of go back to. The only thing Donald Trump has going for him today is the fact that there's a wall of Republicans that still haven't broken. Now, that since they have the House and they have the Senate, that's a big deal. Until that starts to falter, then I think he's protected a bit in Washington, D.C., but out in the country, there's serious questions.
And we'll get a clue from the Republican questioning today.
Yeah, I think we're about to see. I mean, as Dan said, there may not be a smoking gun in this, but there's fingerprints, shell casings, and powder burns, and Sergeant Friday is about to testify today and present just the facts.
I knew you'd come up with something.
I wish I'd used that line. I got to say, that's a better line than any of mine.
You'll have a chance later. I'm going to be anchoring our live coverage of the testimony starting at 10 Eastern. Of course, that's right here on ABC. And to get all the latest reporting, download the ABC News app and sign up for breaking news alerts.